Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, sponsored by ACR Poker, where right now we have Venom Fever. That's right, the $5 million guaranteed Venom PKO is happening right now on ACR Poker. It's a $2,650 buy-in. I will be playing it myself this coming Sunday, January 21st. It begins at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will be live streaming, a 3 or 4 minute delay maybe, on twitch.tv/Clayton Comic. So I had set a goal a couple weeks ago when we did our goals for the New Year episode, and I said at some point this year I'm going to get the Twitch stream working. Well, with the help of a guy by the name of Fat Train, I actually got that happening, so I'm really happy. My name is Clayton Fletcher. I am in New York City, and I'm joined today by a regular guest, actually the inventor of Tournament Poker Edge, our head honcho himself. You guys know who I'm talking about, the one and only Derek Killingbird Tenbusch. Derek, how you been, buddy?
I have been great, Clayton. How about you?
I'm great. Did you hear my big news? I'm going to be on Twitch, bud.
I know. I'm very excited about that. Now I got somebody else to watch.
Yeah, and I don't have to just slum around in your stream all the time. I got to stream on my own. Well, listen, guys, if you come check out my stream this Sunday, I will not have all the bells and whistles that you might be used to if you play in the TPE free roll or the Killingbird home game. I'm not quite set up with beer pong and everything else yet at this point, but I've got a nice little basic overlay. And Fat Train, Justin Kelly, who also is the host of the ACR show, helped me a lot the other day. He figured out what's going on with my laptop that's brand new, and I don't even know how to use it yet, but he got it working so that there was a way we could rig it so that I could actually use one computer to do a live Twitch stream. I think he set me up with a 3-minute delay, so hopefully that's long enough. I didn't usually take that long to make my decisions, so I'm excited, man.
Yeah, it should be fun. I mean, I obviously everyone knows how much I enjoy it, so it'll be cool having you on the streets. Plus, on those rare occasions where I can't host the TP free roll, now it's easier for me to toss it over to you.
Yeah, and maybe I can start doing that on my stream and angering everyone with how hard I make it to figure out the password.
Yeah, that's been a challenge. I've sort of learned. I've taught myself to enjoy the chaos of the password release. Sometimes I just troll people with it, and then sometimes I just make it really easy, and I just say, "Oh, you're the first, 300 people here. Here's the password. Get in."
There you go. If they show up, they're ready to rock. You might as well just give it to them. Yeah, yep. But you got to keep them guessing, right? You can't do the same thing every time, or that's boring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, do it at the same time every time. They only show up for that. So, but it's been really cool because for people who maybe have not participated in it yet, I do this thing on my stream where I tag anybody who's in my chat. And at my table, I tag them with a green tag so that I can know, this is somebody who hangs out in the chat during the free roll or whatever. And what I've loved is that every week we do this, it's more and more green tags at our tables. So I think we're slowly getting to where it's becoming, the true sort of community game that we really wanted it to be.
Yeah, and if you guys are not yet part of the TPE Discord, it's time to get on there. That's where we usually release most of the relevant information about where you can find the free roll, what time we're going to release the password, which Twitch stream it's going to be on. 99% of the time, I'm sure it's still going to be on twitch.tv/Killingbird, which is, I think it's a very quickly growing stream. The last few times I've been on there, seems like your numbers are going up. Maybe all that consistency all these years is starting to pay off a little bit.
They always said that the number one key to growing your Twitch stream is having a consistent schedule. And I always just said, well, I can't have a consistent schedule. My life's too chaotic. I never really know when I'm going to be available or whatever. And now I've gotten to this point where I basically stream every Tuesday night and every Sunday afternoon. And I've noticed the exact same thing you're noticing, which is the viewership numbers keep going up. And I'm like, maybe there was some point to that tip they gave me.
Yeah, only took how many years to get there?
Yeah, but it's been super good. I mean, we've had some really fun streams. Even the ones when I was traveling and kind of streaming on a very lo-fi system. I didn't have my full streaming rig, but even those streams were an absolute blast, and everyone's been very patient with that process. But yeah, we're having fun over there. So Sunday is 6 p.m. Eastern, but make sure you come to the stream early so you can get the password. And like Clayton said, I always drop it. 99% of the time, I'll go into the TP Discord and say, hey, I'm going live about this time. We'll probably release the password around this time. So it's not like you have to be waiting from 7 a.m. to find out when I go live. I'll give you guys the hot tip.
Yeah, so just click the link in the description of this podcast, and so you can join our Discord. It's absolutely free, and that's the best place for us to release information that the most members can get all at once, stuff like the password or if we're doing a giveaway or anything like that. So that's where you guys need to be. Now, I want to get to the feedback from GTO Wizard. So what I've been doing the last few weeks, Derek, I've been kind of going over a few hands, and then for the following week, I'm taking a look back at those hands using GTO Wizard, which is a tool that I think is just, brilliant. It's so easy to use. You know personally, Derek, how bad I am with all things technology. It's a miracle that I'm going to try to stream on Twitch this Sunday. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I can use GTO Wizard. I figure it out very quickly. It's just extremely user-friendly and very much intuitive. So we're going to talk about the hands that we ran through last week, and I'll let you guys know what GTO Wizard has to say about those hands before we get into a strategy hand that you brought from, I guess, a tournament that you played recently. But first, Derek, I want to ask you a question I wanted to ask you several weeks ago. Any goals for 2024, either for the stream or for your business or for poker in general? Like, what are you thinking is going to happen in this big, big year, 2024?
Yeah, it's funny because if you had asked me this, say, a month and a half ago, I think it would have been a very different answer. But kind of two things have developed that I think change those goals a little bit. So the first one is kind of what we already alluded to, which is the stream and wanting to continue to grow that. Again, 2-3 months ago, I would have said, oh, it's cool. The stream's where it's going to be. I'll just keep kind of doing my nonchalant thing and see where it goes. But I think having seen this little bit of growth that we've seen over the last month or two, it's kind of, I don't know, maybe a little fire under my ass to put some more effort in. And by effort, I don't necessarily mean more streaming time, but maybe just spend a little bit more time thinking about the content creation side of things. I have a YouTube channel. I've almost never put videos on it. I have a TikTok channel. I hardly ever do anything on it. So I don't have a hard number like, I want to post this many videos a week or anything like that, but I am going to try to start growing the content side outside of Twitch to help grow the Twitch channel. And then the other thing, which again is a pretty soft goal because I don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but some things have developed, which I can't really go into too many details. So just a teaser, but I will give the details first on this podcast if it actually comes through. But it looks like for the first time in 5 or 6 years, I might be going to Vegas for the entire World Series of Poker again.
Whoa! Hey, that's breaking news. Right? That happens. That would be amazing, man. We can hang out the whole time. That would be awesome. I always go for the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be doing, barring very, very unforeseen circumstances, I intend to do the same this year. That would be incredible. But you can't really tell us any more about it?
Yeah, I can't give a ton of details yet, and plus none of it's confirmed, but I know for sure that it's not supposed to be shared. But the one thing I will say about it is that I don't know what the breakdown of time will be between playing and then just sort of content creation / Twitch stuff. So it might be, playing live poker 10 tournaments and then the rest of the time just focusing on content creation. But it looks like a pretty good chance I'll be out there for a big chunk. I'll probably stay home long enough to celebrate my anniversary with my wife, which is May 29th. So I would miss maybe the first few days of the series, but should be out there shortly after that if all goes well.
Yeah, I mean, not forgetting the anniversary, highly recommended.
Yeah, I missed many of them in the early days of TP. My wife was just like, I don't care, you can go whenever you want. But the older I get, the more I've softened, and I'm like, I should probably stick around for that.
Yeah, but Mrs. Bird is pretty cool like that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right. So this is all good stuff. I mean, those are very exciting goals. I really hope that you do get to come out. You know, sometimes I'm lucky if you just get to spend a weekend in the Vegas streets for the World Series. So that would be so cool to have you around the whole time. So I'm hoping that works out, and you'll keep us posted.
Absolutely. And I suspect I'll know something within the next month or two. So.
All right, cool. Another excuse to get you back on the podcast you started. Always nice to have you here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's get into it a little bit. I don't know if I'm sure you haven't had a chance, Derek. I know you've been traveling, but I did talk a little bit last year about the World Series, the main event from last year. I did a few hands from day one. So I want to just run through those quickly and just tell you guys what the solver has to say. Because I go through the strategy segment old school, just saying what I would do and why. But then I got a chance to kind of compare notes with GTO Wizard. And so I'm off to see the Wizard, and the Wizard tells me whether my inclinations were right, whether the players did things that would be solver approved or not in the different hands. So we can kind of go through those together really quickly before we get into the strategy hand that you brought. And by the way, guys, if you're not yet a part of the GTO Wizard family, you can save 10% on your first purchase if you click the link in the podcast. I'm telling you, this is the best program for learning about artificial intelligence as it relates to poker. The computers are better at this game at this point than we'll ever be. So what can we learn from those computers? And GTO Wizard makes it easy. I tried other solvers, and they confused the hell out of me. This one, it's just intuitive. It makes sense. So I recommend you try it. Click the link, save 10% using our affiliate link. All right, so here we are. Under the gun, we have a raise from a Japanese player by the name of Kono. This is early on at the 200, 400 level. So we're playing 100 plus big blinds deep. And he raised it under the gun with the ace 5 suited. And to no one's surprise at all, the solver's totally on board with it. 75% raise, 25% fold. So that's fine. The action folded to the big blind, a Canadian player named Vaders, and he had the king 10 offsuit and decided to call. Derek, take a guess if the solver likes calling with king 10 versus an under the gun open 100 blinds deep.
What position is the king 10 in?
So he's in the big blind.
Yeah, I'm going to guess it likes that.
Yeah, calling 100% of the time. Never does anything else. 100% call. So these two guys are going to see the heads up flop. The 2,600 in the pot. They've got like 60,000 or so in their stacks. We're very, very deep early in the main event, obviously. Flop comes queen of hearts, 10 of diamonds, 4 of hearts. So queen 10-4 with 2 hearts. And hero with the king of hearts, 10 of clubs. Checks from the big blind, which the solver does all the time. Kono bets 800 into 2,600 with the ace of spades, 5 of spades. And the solver's not crazy about this. It does do it some of the time, but it's mostly checking. And Vaders with second pair decides to call. Do you think the solver's going to approve of that one?
I think it's going to approve of it, but it's going to raise some percentage of the time, although I think it's probably a smaller percentage.
Yeah, very well said. It calls 99.7.
Wow, that's pretty small percentage.
Yeah, the other 0.3, it does some kind of weird raise. But yeah, mostly when you have a medium strength hand, heads up, it's best to just kind of treat it like a bluff catcher, keep the pot smaller, and don't go too crazy, especially out of position. So that's what I'm learning, is that I might get aggressive in spots like this a little more often than I should. So from checking my lines with GTO Wizard, I'm figuring out where some of the leaks in my game are. And believe me, there are plenty. So it's 4,200 in the middle, and the turn comes the tray of diamonds. So our board is now queen 10 for tray with 2 hearts and 2 diamonds. Hero again with the king of hearts, 10 of clubs. And it's up to our hero in the big blind with the king 10. And he checks. The solver likes it. I talked about leading sometimes last week. Like this might be a spot where you could occasionally throw out a bet. No, the solver wants to check pretty much all the time. It's like 99.9 with a random, lead out just once in a blue moon. But yeah, you want to check here. Kono bets 6,000 now.
Jeez.
Yeah, so it's a big over bet, like almost 150% of the pot into the 4,200. And he's only got he's got nothing. He's got a gut shot, right? He's got ace of spades, 5 of spades on queen 10-4 trade with no spades. He's got an overcard, I guess, and a gut shot. So yeah, what do you think the solver is going to say about this bet? 6,000 into 4,200.
Jeez, this is why I can't play high stakes poker. I mean, I can't imagine it's going to be fold all the time, but it's got to be fold a good percentage.
Yes, but what about the bet itself? What about the overbet? Do you think the solver is going to approve of this overbet?
The overbet. Oh, I can't imagine it does.
You'd be surprised. 20% of the time, this shocked me. 20% of the time, the solver does exactly this, over betting the pot by like 140%. I had no idea with such a weak hand, and the rest of the time it's a check. And then Vaders makes the call, and the solver likes the call, Derek. 99.6%.
Wow.
I talked on this podcast how I like to fold here quite a bit, because now we got a whole other street to go. We've just got second pair.
Yep. Out of position.
Yeah, out of position, exactly. So apparently I fold in these spots too much. I get scared of those overbets. How about you?
Well, the thing that's interesting to me is that it loves the overbet, and then the only other option it likes is checking. But it doesn't like. I think if I was ever leading here, I would just be betting small.
Yeah. GTO Wizard considers all the different sizes, not every possible size, obviously, but a number of different sizes, and it doesn't like any other bet sizing. So when we lead here, we've got to be representing a monster with a big, like, polarizing overbet. We never want to do like just a little blocker bet or any kind of feel them out half pot, nothing like that. It's either a check, which it's 80% check, and 20% overbet. That really surprised me as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I don't think it's I don't think it's a mistake, or I don't think it's a coincidence that he's overbetting when the solver likes an overbet. He's clearly run this spot before.
Yeah, he's probably the type of guy that really looks at these spots, and heads up when I'm the pre-flop raiser under the gun and all that kind of stuff. But even so, he's supposed to check most of the time. So if he's overbetting every time in this spot, he's losing a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah. So now with 16,200 in the middle, the river came the 7 of diamonds, and our big blind checks once more. And the solver likes that 100% of the time with just a pair of 10s, always checking into the guy who overbet the pot on 4th Street. And now Kono, the Japanese player that's been aggressive this whole hand, bets 15,000 into 16,200. So what do you think the solver is going to think of that with ace high?
I want to say it's not going to like it, and I don't like it, which makes me think it's going to like it.
I like the way you think, sir. So it's a 40% check, a 37% pot size bet, and the rest is smaller sizing. Never an overbet here on this river. So I found that very interesting. Vaders, what do you think he should do with a pair of 10s?
I think now you just have to give it up, right?
Yeah, well, you have to call 16% of the time so as to not be exploitable, but fold the rest.
Yeah.
So Vaders does fold, and the solver basically likes it, although once in a while you have to keep him honest, as we used to say. So, he bluffed all the way with that ace-5 and eventually got his opponent to lay down the hand. This hand was fascinating. When I watched it for the first time on Poker Go, I said, man, like, how much pressure you can put somebody on day one of the main event if you just keep betting huge.
Yeah.
I guess it works until it doesn't, right? That's what they always say.
True. And really short of sets, it's really pretty hard for him to call anything else.
Yeah, I guess 2 pair, but yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough to do anything. And because our big blind in that hand is going to have so many missed draws, it makes betting more attractive for that reason as well, because none of the draws really came in, right?
Right.
So I thought that was a good one. And then the next hand that I reviewed last week that we're going to cover real quick here with GTO Wizard is the very next hand in the tournament. And this time the action folds to the button, who's my friend, Jackie Burkhart. I love Jackie Burkhart. I'm somewhat obsessed with her. I think she's so much fun to play poker with. She's very good at the game. She also has a very, very fun-loving personality. I've had the honor of playing at her table a number of times over the years, and she's always just someone I'm really happy to see in Vegas. Anyway, so she's got 35K, and so almost 100 big blinds, and she opens on the button with the ace of diamonds, 7 of hearts. Of course, the solver likes opening with any ace on the button folded to us with 100 blinds. And the small blind folds, and the villain from the last hand, Kono, is in the big blind with the 6 of hearts, 5 of hearts. So what do you think the solver is going to have him do with 6-5 suited versus a min raise?
I think call.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, for sure. Of course, the solver loves Jackie's play, but says that Kono actually wants to 3-bet with this hand quite a bit. 85% 3-bet with 6-5 suited and only call 15%, never fold. I thought that was just wild. So why is 6-5 of hearts so important to 3-bet? I don't know. Maybe it's because the button should have such a wide opening range that we need to have some suited connectors in our 3-betting range, and probably take it down a lot because, everybody knows they're supposed to open half the time on the button.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the logic, sometimes I got to look at GTO Wizard and say, what are you trying to tell me, buddy? What are you trying to tell me here?
It tells me I'm being way too nitty on these spots.
Yeah, right. That's why we do this, though. I mean, and you can see how running your own hands through the solver would really help you learn about your game and where you can be more aggressive and where maybe you're playing some spots wrong by rote, just out of routine. Anyway, with 2,600 in the middle, the flop came 9 of diamonds, 8 of clubs, tray of hearts, and Kono checks to the razor, which it does 100% of the time that it didn't 3-bet. So, so as played, the solver likes to check here. Burkhart decides to bet 700 into 2,600. What do you think the solver will say about that one, Derek?
Did you say there was what was the flop again?
Sure thing. The flop is 9 of diamonds, 8 of clubs, tray of hearts, and Jackie had the ace of diamonds, 7 of hearts.
Okay, so just a backdoor straight is really no backdoor flushes or anything.
To a straight, yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of interesting because this hand hits Kono's range so well, or at least better than ours. But I'm also from that old school mentality of I think you're just supposed to c-bet so often here. So I assume it's going to be split somewhere between c-bet and check.
Yeah, so it is a mixed strategy, but mostly, almost half the time, we are checking here. And I made the comment last week, exactly as you just stated, Derek. This is a better flop, generally speaking, for the big blinds range than for the button open range. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any really high cards come out. Of course, this will hit Jackie some of the time, but I think it's generally going to hit the big blind a little bit harder. I mean, the in-position player is always going to have a slight EV advantage, but that advantage is more magnified when it's like an ace-high flop or 2 broadways on the flop. A 9-high flop is pretty close, in overall expectation, and therefore it likes checking a good bit of the time, and then either betting a very small amount or betting close to the pot, kind of all over the place with a very mixed up strategy that none of us would ever actually be able to employ. Like 13.2% of the time, I'm going to bet 1/3, right?
Right.
Yeah, but that was interesting to me because I sort of was a bit critical of Jackie's decision not to go ahead and c-bet this flop because I felt like she should be checking a lot. And the solver kind of indicates that as well. Kono makes the call with 6 of hearts, 5 of hearts. So he's got the bottom end of a gut shot and a 6-high backdoor flush draw. So what do you think the solver is going to say about the call here with the 6-5 suited?
So this is the hand immediately following the last one. So I assume they're both still very deep.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
And I am so new to solvers that I'm going to assume it takes into consideration stack depth and all that fun stuff, which I think it's going to make it like this as a call because there's a lot of turning cards that help us. Yeah, they don't necessarily get us there.
Yeah,
but they help us. And because we are so deep The bet's not huge. I think it's gonna like call.
Yeah. So the solver calls 16% of the time and never folds. So there's a number of different raise sizes you can do here, but it's mostly like a great flop for the check raise for the reason you just said, because there's so many turn cards we're going to like, whether it gives us a straight or a flush draw or a pair or a straight draw, and another straight draw possibly. We're not going to fold ever, even though we don't really have anything yet. But it's a great spot for a check raise that you can continue on 4th Street with some more aggression when you pick up one of those cards that improves your equity. So, it's not crazy about calling, only 16% of the time. The favorite play is a 3.5x check raise. Yeah, so Jackie had bet basically 2 blinds, so it would make it like about seven-ish blinds, 7.5, something like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting because you just have six high, but let's go.
Yeah, it does. It is interesting, and it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because like what you said, we check raise here, Jackie calls, and we can lead so many turns. In fact, we can probably lead all of them because we're now the aggressor.
Yeah. And I don't know if you'd want to lead every single turn, but at least the ones that give us either a pair or a heart draw or something. And there's so many of those cards, as you mentioned. So this is interesting. I mean, this is what I'm really learning by playing with the solvers is, even as aggressive as I can be at the table, there are spots where I'm a little too passive too often. And now you do call 16% of the time. So if you literally always raise on this flop, you're going too aggressive and you're exploitable.
Yeah.
So you have to call 16% of the time to stay unexploitable if that is your goal, which if you're playing as a computer, it's the only way to break even.
Yeah.
So now he just calls though. And with 4,000 in the middle of the turn came the 10 of diamonds. So our board is now 9-8 tray 10 with 2 diamonds. And Kono decides to lead out here. He bets half the pot. Not half the pot, a little less, 1,300 into 4K. So about a third of the pot, really. I found that strange last week. I mentioned on the podcast, I thought it was weird. The solver checks 99.2% of the time and bets half the pot less than, just 0.8% of the time. So I guess this could be like a low frequency play, but I think it's probably more likely to be a mistake.
Yeah, it feels like, this feels like a very bad range when we, against what she could have in this hand.
Yeah, now if you had check raised on the flop, and the 10 hit on the turn, maybe we can bet and it's a little better. But given that we played the flop passively, it's kind of weird to just come out swinging here on the turn, right?
Yeah, it feels very weird.
Yeah, well, Jackie had picked up a straight draw. Remember, she has ace-7, so she picked up the bottom end of a straight draw to go with her overcard, and I guess she felt like that was enough of a hand to go ahead and call with. As for her play, the solver's mixed, mostly call, as she did, 60% call, 25% fold, though, which I found interesting because she does have that open-ender. But, the solver doesn't love it that much, still folding, a quarter of the time, and doing some weird raise about 15% of the time. So anyway, Burkhart calls, and now with 6,600 in the middle, the river is the 10 of hearts, pairing the board, but not bringing in any kind of flush on 9-8 tray 10-10. And now Kono, who remember had led out on the turn, decided to check the river. I'm here to tell you, the solver hardly ever checks the river. The turn. Hardly ever bets the turn. I'll get it right. The solver hardly ever bets the turn, as I mentioned, 0.8% of the time. It bets half the pot on the turn, and the rest of the time it checks. But when it bets the turn, it always bets the river.
I was going to say, this seemed like the story we're trying to tell. This is the perfect card for the story we're trying to tell.
Yeah, why do we lead the turn and then the river pairs the 10? You have to bet again, don't you?
Yeah, I would think so. This is a spot that even I, who am often accused of being way too tight, I would bet here.
Yeah, if you had done that wild play on 4th Street, I think you would know this is a perfect card, as you just said, a perfect card for me to continue representing. It looks like I finally woke up when the 10 hit on 4th Street, so now another 10 hits on the river. I think Kono, having gotten away with something on the previous hand, may have just decided to give up on this one because he didn't want to mess with Jackie anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that could be. I can't get away with this twice.
Yeah. Sometimes you get into that mentality, like game flow makes you say, "Well, I'm not going to press my luck or whatever." But I'm sure if he had, Jackie would have folded. As it turns out, she ends up winning this hand, a pretty decent pot, by the way, with ace high. So she was thrilled.
Yeah, I wonder if she was surprised. I wonder how surprised she was when he flipped over that hand. Well, he might have just mocked, I guess.
Yeah, he probably just threw it away because, what is he going to try to win with a showdown with 6 high?
Yeah. Be pretty great if he won, though.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then you guys can see how Derek and I are learning together, playing around with GTO Wizard, especially in heads-up pots. It's a super easy tool. Before we get to your hand that you brought, Derek, I did want to mention the powers that be at ACR wanted me to mention we are aware of some of the recent controversy that's been going on around the area of cheating and bots on the site. And ACR Poker actually released a statement this week that you can read. We're going to just link it in the description of this podcast right here so that you guys can read what ACR Poker is doing about the ongoing battle versus dishonest players. And spoiler alert, it actually involves GTO Wizard as one of the methods that ACR is using to help fight the battle against the bots. Any thoughts on that one, Derek?
Yeah, I'm really happy with the approach that they're taking now. I think everyone will agree that they had some missteps when this kind of all first started breaking, including them. They even came to us. And one of the things I've explained to people is ACR does their thing. The pros might have some insight into what's happening behind the scenes, but probably not a ton. And then the stormers have almost nothing. So, sometimes people hit me up and say, "Hey, what are they doing about this, or what's going on?" I'm like, "Man, your guess is as good as mine. Like, I don't have any insight."
Dude,
I'm like, I just a guy who drinks beer and plays poker. But that being said, it's definitely something we were all well aware of. And I was excited when I saw that they partnered, I guess is a word, with GTO Wizard to help identify some of this stuff. And I did hear today, and I think this is public knowledge because it was a pro saying it in a public setting, an ACR pro saying it in a public setting, that I think they just banned 400 accounts today, or in the last day or two, I think. So it's good to see some progress happening on that front. There was actually speculation. I don't know how many bots are playing a 1K free roll on Sundays.
Right.
But when I was streaming the 1K free roll on Sunday, there were a lot of people in my chat saying there's way less bots in this thing today.
Yeah, there's always been some suspicion around how many bots were in the free roll, especially from a certain part of Europe. I know what I'm alluding to there. But yeah, I remember we kind of used to joke about it, even joking that you were a bot. But then this whole controversy arose, and then I said, "Man, I don't even know if it's funny anymore to call Derek a bot."
Right. Yeah. Luckily, I'm on camera, so I'm like, "Look, I'm right here, guys. I promise."
An android. Maybe you're a droid.
Yeah, but it's encouraging. It's good to see. I was talking to somebody, I can't remember who it was, in the chat the other day about my experience with it. And I've always, going back even before I played on ACR, I always just kind of assumed there were bots in the games because when there's a way to cheat any system, somebody's going to do it. But I don't know if I realized the extent that it was to, or maybe the effect that it was having. But I know, GG's Poker has had their issues. Ignition has had their issues. So the one thing I'm really happy about is like I said, the speed at which they kind of changed course when they realized they took a bad course, and then kind of this transparent nature of how they're doing it now, which I think is really, really good.
Agreed. And again, guys, you can read the full statement from ACR Poker about, there's a bit of a mea culpa. We've done some more research. We've had a change of heart about how we're supposed to handle this. We're listening to the community and all of that. And you can learn some of the steps that they're actually taking, including banning many, many accounts, as Derek mentioned, that have been proven to be, let's just say, not exactly on the up and up. So that's a good thing. And I hope that they will continue to do that. And that all online poker will be as safe as it possibly can in the coming weeks and months. So enough about that, Derek. Why don't we get into your hand? What's it from? What's going on? What's happening?
Yeah, so this is from a tournament that I played. I think this was actually on Sunday. It could have been the prior Tuesday. As you mentioned, I've been traveling, so I just kind of dug into the archives and pulled it. No, this was definitely Sunday, because I had a very interesting, I had a sort of funny conversation about this hand on the stream when it happened. Somebody had actually come into my stream and asked me about my HUD, and he said, "Oh, what HUD do you use, and what do the numbers mean, and all that stuff?" And so I told him, I use Poker Tracker, and these are the numbers that I have on my HUD, and this is what they mean. And I said, but I have to be honest with you, when I'm streaming, I really don't utilize it as much as I should.
Yeah.
Just because, there's so much going on, keeping up with the chat, running beer pong, whatever else. I'll look at it in big situations, like, oh, this guy just 3-bet jammed on me. What, is he crazy? Is he tight? What's the story? But I don't use it nearly as much as I should. And when this hand happened, I said, hey, here's a perfect hand. I'll use this as an example. I'm going to actually pay attention to my HUD very closely for this entire hand. And I'll show you how you should use a HUD. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I played this hand correctly, but it does mean that I was actually paying very close attention to the numbers when this hand went down.
Right. So because someone asked you about the HUD, that made you pay attention to the HUD, and it may have affected your decisions in the hand because you were looking at the HUD for once.
Yeah, and the one that the very first street really is the one that I specifically remember saying, because of this number, I'm going to do this. So we'll see that when we get to it.
I can't wait to hear it. All right, let's go through it.
All right, so we are at the 300, 600 level. We start the hand with 20,500 chips. Usually it'll give me the big blinds, but for some reason it's not showing me that today. But I think that's about 35-ish, somewhere in there.
That sounds right. So we're not in the money or anything. Is registration still open, you think?
Yeah, I would guess registration's still open at this point. Most of the ACR tournaments have pretty long late reg, so I'd say we're probably still in late reg. And we have a pretty average stack at our table. There is a 60K stack directly to our left, but everyone else is pretty much in like the 20 to 30K range.
Great.
So it folds to us in middle position, and we have pocket aces, ace of spades, ace of clubs.
Mm-hmm. I recommend a raise here.
I think that's a good call. Although I will say, so I chose to raise to 1,800.
Oh,
that's way too big. I think with these stack depths, like the big blind only has 19K, so it's like 30 bigs. I don't think we need to be raising 3x. Well, I shouldn't say way too big. I think you just min raise here. I think it was probably just that I was clicking buttons at the moment. Before I said, hey, I'm going to use my HUD now.
Yeah, right. Now, Derek, do you generally raise the minimum? Do you have a standard raise size at 30 big blinds, or do you just kind of play it by feel?
It's kind of by feel. Usually, like my most standard raise size, if I'm actually not just hitting the 3x button, is min plus 999.
Okay, that's fair.
So it's usually, my normal raise here would be 12.99.
Right, just a little bit more than a minimum. All right.
Yeah. But I will say that in really small, maybe like a $3 tournament or a $5 tournament where we're really deep, sometimes I'll raise like 3.5x because people just don't fold in those small stakes tournaments.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm happy with my big, I'm happy to build big pots with big hands.
Right.
But generally speaking, if I'm playing like an 11 or above and we're at normal stack depths, it's usually just a little over min.
Okay. And then how many callers did you get? So
we get one caller. He is in the small blind.
Oh, okay.
And he starts the hand with 24K-ish.
And this is the guy whose HUD is going to affect us. So what did you notice about his HUD when he called?
Yeah, so he's a relatively tight player, although at this point in the tournament, we were playing tighter than him. He was running 17-8 with a 4% three bet, so never really three betting, not really raising a ton. I mean, he's only, he's playing 70% of hands, but he's only raising 8%. So he seems pretty tightish to me.
Yeah, kind of weak tight, passive tight, yeah.
Yeah. Even to the point where, like, you can look at like his C-bet number, which is 50, which is pretty low, I think. Or I should say maybe it's normal, but it kind of tells me that he C-bets when he has it and he doesn't when he doesn't.
Yeah.
Not that he'll be C-betting in this hand, but, basically he just looks like a relatively tight, straightforward player.
Right, probably not too many bells and whistles. You can expect him to be fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
So he should be fairly easy to play against in that case.
Exactly. And there's one more number, which we'll get to in just a second. So the flop comes 5-5-3, 2 hearts. And he checks. So one of the numbers that I have on my HUD is fold to C-bet. And he was folding to C-bets 77% of the time.
So you don't want to lose him, so you probably don't want to bet then.
Exactly. And I said, normally if I were just sitting here talking with you guys and we were kicking back having beers and I was playing, I would just automatically bet like a third pot or half pot or something here because I have aces and it's 5-5-3 and whatever. Like, seems like a good place to bet. But I did make the point to look at that number. And I said, he's going to fold here nearly 100% of the time. He's been doing that over 165 hands. So he seems kind of like we just said, he seems like the kind of player who might call, but when he doesn't hit the flop, he folds.
Right. So we might as well let him take one off. Maybe he'll hit something on the turn. It's just so unlikely that this 5-5 tray flop even hit any part of his range.
Yeah, especially with the paired board. It's kind of like, I mean, that's even harder for him to have hit anything. Now he could certainly call like 6s or 7s or 8s or something pre-flop, and he would continue on this board. But there's just gonna be so many hands that he folds. So, and I think too, with us both being, I mean, there's already 5K in the middle. I have 18K behind. I don't think I need every street to get the money in. So I'm okay with just checking back, hopefully giving him a chance. Maybe he's got like 10 jack or something, and we get a 10 on the turn or something like that. So I use my HUD. I react and I decide to just check it back.
I like it. You're going to want to check back this flop with some other hands, I suppose. Although, I don't know, maybe GTO Wizard's going to say we're always supposed to bet. But then that's the difference between playing versus a computer and playing against an opponent that is not playing GTO himself. So in a sense, you checking back because he folds too much to C bets is an exploit in a sense itself, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I'll be interested to see what GTO does say about this. But and there probably was a small part of me too that was doing it as a demonstration, like, hey, this is maybe the best move here. We'll find out, I guess, by the river if it was.
Right. You're Twitch streaming. So while you're doing your live stream, if someone asks you a question, like what kind of HUD do you use and how do you use it, you kind of want to answer the question and just be a good Twitch host.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's a perfect opportunity. I like it.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, there's 4,800 in the middle. The turn is now the 10 of hearts. So it's 3, 5, 5, 10 with 3 hearts. We have no heart. We have the ace of spades, ace of clubs. He checks again. And at this point,
have to bet. Come on, we got to get some money in this pot, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think at this point, I still think there's a pretty good chance he has nothing to continue with here. But we have to start building a pot at some point. And, to some point, we want to protect our hand against the 4th heart coming out, things like that. So, yeah, at this point, I think we do want to start betting. I bet 2,112. I don't know why I chose that size, but it's very creative, which I guess is a little under half pot. Do you like that sizing?
I don't mind it. I might go a little smaller just to make sure I get calls from hands like pocket 6s, like if he has those hands. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm afraid I might lose him if I bet too much. So, yeah, I want more hands to be able to call. Maybe an ace-high type of hand that might be able to call me if I bet a little less. Yeah. But, yeah, it's certainly not a mistake to bet 21-12 into 4,800.
Yeah, cool. So now's when it gets kind of interesting because we've kind of described this guy as a relatively straightforward, like probably not going to get out of line too much, not too aggressive. He raises us to 66-24.
Oh boy. Oh yeah, I see that one coming. I mean, look, you have pocket aces and 30 big blinds. The flop was 5-5-3, you know. I mean, facts are facts. We don't have 100,000 hands on the guy. We have less than 200. It's enough to kind of get a picture of somebody. That doesn't mean this is never a bluff. I mean, especially when we kept the pot small on the flop, I think there's a non-zero chance. There's always a non-zero chance your opponent is bluffing. But I don't like it. I don't love it. But look, we started this hand with 35-ish big blinds. I mean, I'm not trying to fold. I don't know. I might just shove it here. You know what? Because he could be check raising with a draw. Maybe he has the ace of hearts in his hand. You know, we can get it in as a pretty good favorite against that hand with a shove here.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I, in the moment, was like, well, we sort of, I wasn't expecting it from this guy, but we may have invited it from this guy because of the way we played the flop. And I think he would assume that we would have c-bet our hearts. We wouldn't have checked back hearts. So I don't think he's worried about the flush.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's so unlikely that we have a flush draw or a flush now that we flopped a flush draw and checked it back on 5-5-3. That seems pretty unlikely.
Yeah. So I think, it is a good spot for him to do it. Again, I didn't really expect it from him, but it's kind of a good spot for him to do it. And I think once we checked back the turn, I hate to use the word always or never, but I feel like in my mind, once I checked back the flop, in my mind, I don't think I was ever folding no matter what happened. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, we're trying to get all the chips in here. I'm going to try to do it this creative way. And if it bites me, it bites me.
Yeah. I don't really want to fold either. Really ever. Maybe if another heart comes and the board just looks so horrible at that point. But even then, I mean, we already put in so many chips. I don't know if I can fold at all. Yeah. So the question then becomes, since we're not folding, is it better to call or is it better to shove? I guess I would say that the case for calling is you keep his bluffs in. Like if we shove, we're going to lose all his bluffs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in hindsight, when I was looking back at this, I think I lean shove for the reason you said, like if he has the ace of hearts, maybe even the king of hearts for that matter, he might just look at it and go, well, I've put so many chips in now, I kind of got to just hope I spike it.
Yeah, and that way we can get the full double, whereas if we wait for the river, we can't get that double anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So, and, spoiler alert, I did just call, and it comes a deuce of diamonds. And so he now has 17K left and there's 18K in the middle. This is an okay spot for him if he was doing this with like ace jack with the ace of hearts to just give up. He's still got 30 big blinds. He hasn't done irreparable damage to his stack. And that's kind of why I wish I had just shoved on the turn.
Right, because he could give up. So what about us? We only have what, like 12,000 left?
Yeah, we have 12,000.
Yeah, okay. So there's about 18K in the middle. Villain has about that much left, but we only have about 12 left. Well, does he check? No, he bets.
Yeah, he jams the river.
Oh, okay. So, okay. That's the one who just said, I don't think I want to fold no matter what happens. The river is not a heart. So it's not like there's 4 to a flush out there. It's 5-5 tray 10 deuce with 3 hearts. And we have 2 aces with no hearts. I mean, look, if he's got it, he's got it. Maybe he has a 5, whatever. I call. I'm not folding.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think I knew I was calling before he even did that. I wish he was running like 40-28 or something instead, because I would feel way more better about the call. But we do end up making the call, and he shows the king of diamonds, 8 of spades.
So no pair anywhere, no draw, and nothing. He just had pure nothing. But because you checked on the flop to show your Twitch stream viewer what a HUD is and how it works, you end up doubling up anyway.
And I am going to continue to tell myself for the rest of my life that he did that because I checked back the flop. But it is not unusual to see this from players, and I say it all the time on my stream. I'll be like, I don't know what gets into people sometimes. You know, they play 165 hands at 17-8, and then they just blast. It's like they can't resist themselves.
It's finally time for me to come out of my shell and step out. And after he did this wild bluff and lost all those chips, I bet he didn't bluff anybody again for the rest of the day.
Yep. Yeah. So I thought it was an interesting hand in a few ways, but particularly just that I just wanted to tell the story about, like, this is how, how useful a HUD can be. And that's not even like scratching the surface of what a HUD will tell you. And people ask me all the time, like, is it worth it? Is it like, it's like $100 or something? And I said, if you're playing any tournaments above like $3 or $5 or even in that range, and you play 2 or 3 days a week, a HUD will pay for itself in a matter of a few weeks. I 100% guarantee it. Agreed.
Now I have to get a new one because I used to use Hold'em Manager, but they don't make that for the Macintosh. So I've got this new Apple computer, and I got to figure out how to use it, including how to use Poker Tracker. So that's something else. Neither one sponsors the podcast, so I'm just mentioning them both for free.
Yeah, good luck, because when my Poker Tracker breaks, I have to call in like technical support to fix it for me, because I don't know what's going on that thing.
Fat Train, help me out.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. And if you want to be a part of Derek's decision-making process on his next stream, it's twitch.tv/Killingbird. This coming Sunday, he'll be doing the TPE free roll, which I may or may not be playing in myself, kind of depending on how things are going on my own stream over on twitch.tv/Clayton Comic, where I will be streaming on a short delay the Venom PKO, the $5 million guarantee. So I'm excited about that. Derek, what else do you want people to know before we say goodbye?
One thing I did want to do is, for anybody who's listening to this that participated in my charity stream in November, I don't think I've been on the podcast since then.
You haven't?
So I wanted to take a moment and thank everybody. I think all in all, we ended up raising somewhere around $2,500, I think, for Hoofbeats and Paw Prints Rescue down in Mississippi. That was really cool. I actually, on my trip, I got to spend a day volunteering with them, and they're a very small, family-run rescue, and they do great things. So, main thing I wanted to do is shout out everybody who's a listener who happened to participate in that. Thank you guys very much. That was made for a great charity stream.
Yeah, it's hard to believe you haven't been on since then, but yeah, no, that was way back in November. And $2,500 for a small animal rescue like that will probably go a very long way, I would think.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's so cool. And I hope that you guys will join us this Sunday for the TPE free roll. If you're not yet on ACR Poker, click the link in the description of this podcast. You can get a first-time deposit bonus up to $2,000 just by using the promo code TPE. Derek, anything else?
I think that's it, my friend.
All right. Well, for my buddy Derek Killingbird, Tenbusch, and for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa.